And welcome back from Thanksgiving. This is our third episode of Never Stop Serving. I'm Mike Maloney for the Greenville Veterans Memorial Park and Digital Library, VFW Post 7262. We're filming Friday morning after Thanksgiving here at Greenville Senior High School, home of the Greenville Green Wave, at IMTV Channel 5. The great folks here at IMTV are always helping us out with our episodes, and they did a great job with episode 2. If you haven't seen our first 2 episodes, you can go back to YouTube and check them out. We have our own channel there. Very proud of it. We're very proud of the progress we're making, and we're going to continue to get better and better. I had Stephanie Huber lined up for you, the young lady that did the national anthem for us at the talent show. If you haven't seen the talent show, you can also go back to YouTube and check that out. But she wasn't able to attend today due to work things. She actually has a day job, and she had to be there today, so she had to cancel on us. And I was feverishly looking around after she had to cancel for a replacement so we could have somebody and have our third show. Turned out I really couldn't find anybody in that time frame, but I did make some good contacts for some stuff in the future that I'll be happy to show you later. I'm very excited about it. But couldn't find anybody. I was kind of bummed out that our third show, we were going to have to postpone just a bit. But then I said, all right, fine, we have plenty of work we have to do otherwise. The third episode will just have to wait. But then I got this little baby in the mail. This came in the mail right when I was thinking, forget it. And I have to tell you, full disclosure, it's an interview of me by the Wright State Veterans Military Center, Adrian Hill. He interviewed me in September when we started this venture with Wright State, and then we started the venture here at the high school, the Greenville Senior High School. Once we started that together, I did the interview for him, and it's just now been rendered, and this whole video has been sent to the Library of Congress, and all my stuff, just like they're doing the same thing we're doing, maybe just a little different. So we're gonna actually use this interview today. This is episode 3, Never Stop Serving, because quite frankly, you know, first I have to be willing to do what I'm asking everybody else to do. I'm asking people to come in here and share their story. I have to be willing to do that myself, and I think if you see this interview, you'll think, oh yeah, he's willing to do it himself. So that way, I'm the third episode, and we'll get right to it. Not much more introduction. But please remember still to consider supporting the Greenville Veterans Memorial Park and Digital Library in any way you can. We're in the phase of getting as many veteran interviews as possible. So if you know any veterans that would like to share the story with us, please let us know. There'll be a graphic at the end of how you can contact us. Please contact us if you use anything you can help with. You know, perhaps helping us find more veterans to interview. Maybe you've got a good idea you want to share, or financial contribution. Whatever you can do for it, we appreciate. We got the great holiday season coming up here, and you still have the opportunity to order T-shirts and talent show DVDs before Christmas. We have that. You'll see that commercial also. So please help us out, and please be safe as you're preparing for Christmas. I hope to have someone very special for you next Friday. I think I've got it cooked up and ready to go. But as far as that goes, here we go to my interview. Here is Michael Maloney, interviewed by Adrian Hill, Wright State University Veterans Military Center. Thanks.
We are recording the interview of Michael Maloney. This interview is being conducted by Adrian Hill from the Wright State University's Veteran Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. It is 3:15 p.m. on September 28, 2015. All right, Michael, when and where were you born?
I was born in Columbus, Ohio at Rickenbacker Air Force Base. It was called Lock 1 at the time, on December 16, 1965.
Okay. Who are your parents?
My mom was Carrie Ruth Oda from Greenville, and my dad was James Miller Maloney from Syracuse. My dad was serving in the Air Force. I'm the youngest of 7 kids. He was serving in the Air Force, and of course they were stationed at Lock 1 at the time. I was born. And there was 6 siblings before that, all from military bases. So our NFL teams are based off of where we were born. You know.
Ah, okay.
Except mine's kind of weird. Mine's the Bears. So I don't know how I ended up with the Bears being born in Columbus. I don't know.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Especially this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Really. No doubt.
Yeah.
It's great.
Okay, so your dad was he a full time? I mean, did he?
Yes, he was a
full-time?
master sergeant in the Air Force. He's a Vietnam veteran. He was a load master on a C-130.
Oh, okay.
And you know he actually did 2 tours in Vietnam. He volunteered for a 2nd tour.
Yeah, John, who you met outside, he's C-130 load master. He was in. So. Okay, so what did your mother do then?
My mother was a homemaker at the time, and then later she helped run the VFW, local VFW here in Greenville.
Oh, okay.
And she had other odd jobs through like Blockbuster video and stuff like that. But she, for the most part, was a homemaker. She stayed pretty busy with 7 kids.
Okay.
She always, you know, her big moniker was, "I had 7 kids in 10 years." You know, that kept her pretty busy.
Wow, that is a lot.
Yeah.
Kids. So there's 6 others of you.
Right.
Did any of them do military?
They all did actually.
Oh, wow.
Well, one very briefly, and the other one couldn't. I'll start from the top. Well, I take that back. 2 of them. Okay. So Kathy, my sister Kathy, she's the oldest. She married a horse guy, Bruce Regal. He's famous. It's a famous name in Greenville for harness racing. Married him. They had a child, and then I have a brother Dennis. He went in the Navy. He did 20 years in the Navy. He was a submarine guy.
Okay.
He's in submarines for 20 years in the Navy. He's retired now, lives in Las Vegas. My first sister's retired, lives in Lexington. 3rd down is Tim, my brother Tim. He was in the Navy for a very brief period, and then his wife, I believe his wife got pregnant and he got out of the Navy. They gave him a choice or something like that because of the family care plan or something like that. They gave him a choice, he got out. So he was in very briefly. My brother Kevin, he passed away early at 27. He drowned in the lake. My brother Terry, or my sister Patty's next. She joined the Navy. She was in the Navy for some time, and she was maybe in 6-7 years. And then she retired out of the Navy Reserves. She lives in Colorado Springs now.
Okay.
And then my brother Terry, he was in the Navy also. He was a dental technician in the Navy. We kind of teased him that, you know, he was eligible for the VFW because the time they bombed Gaddafi, when Reagan bombed Gaddafi, he was on a boat. He was on a fast frigate. He was on the trying to remember the name of it. Oh, the Guadalcanal. He was on the USS Guadalcanal during that operation, and he was a dental technician. So he takes a little abuse on that. He recently passed away a year and a half ago. Unfortunately, suicide, which, you know, veteran suicide seems to be the predominant problem right now. And then there's me. I'm the only one who joined the Army. I joined the Army in 1984, right after I graduated. After I graduated, I went right into Fort McClellan, Alabama. Became an MP. Traveled the world. You know, I went to many places. Been to many things. I've just seen a lot, and I'm very fortunate. I feel very fortunate that I signed up and did all that stuff. Just looking back at it, I'm like, wow, it's amazing how quickly it went and how fast it went. As far as combat tours, my first one was Desert Shield and Desert Storm. In Desert Shield and Desert Storm, I was an active duty filler in a National Guard unit.
Okay.
So in other words, the National Guard needed help. They didn't have as many people, so they put some active duty non-commissioned officers in there. I was a compound sergeant for prisoners of war. You know, if you know anything about Desert Shield and Desert Storm, that's all there was prisoners of war. You know, 800,000, a large amount of prisoners of war. My compound, I was a compound sergeant, and my compound was suited for like 450 prisoners, and we ended up having 900 in there. You know? So that was an interesting deal.
We'll go into the deployments here in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What was What led you to pick the Army after you said your dad was Air Force and then all your other siblings were Navy?
It's a good question.
You
It's
picked
a good
Army.
question. Everybody asks me. I'll tell you that the best answer is the recruiter. The Army recruiter, called me and said, "Hey, this is what we do. This is the opportunities." And I guess they were just first.
So what was this right out of high school?
Right out of high school. Yeah, actually, I signed up delayed entry. I signed up when I was, I think, a junior.
And
Yeah,
you
I
were
was a
good.
junior because I signed up December 10th, the year prior, delayed entry, and they guaranteed, the schooling. I wanted to be an MP, and they guaranteed, I think, my first duty station, something like that.
So did you do the thing where you go to basic training one summer and then go back to school? No.
No, it was just delayed entry. I signed up and, all that stuff, and then I went to basic training in August after I graduated.
Okay.
It was just something they were doing, because that time counted. There was something,
Oh, okay.
somehow that time counts was something of mine. I don't know
Oh,
what,
wow.
I can't even actually explain it, but somehow I get credit for 83, 1210 is when I actually signed up, but I didn't actually go in until 84.
So does count towards your active duty days for retirement, or?
It was something like that. I didn't know, not active duty dates. It counted for something else though, like,
Well, in the reserves, like when you sign your contract is when you your enlistment starts on the reserves and guard. So maybe that's.
maybe it was the enlistment that, it was something like that. It counted for something.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure what.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So what was where did you go to basic training at, did you say?
Fort McClellan, Alabama.
Alabama. Do you recall
One
leaving-
station unit training. I guess the Army
Yep.
used to do basic somewhere and then send you somewhere else. And these were some of the first where they started doing both at the same place.
That's right, that's what I did.
Yeah. OSIT, I guess,
Yeah.
maybe they still call
They
it.
still do.
Yeah.
I went through it.
Yeah.
So, do you recall leaving home? What that was like for you? I mean, I know you've been around with your dad, going to different places, but what was that like for you to leave home?
Well, my dad passed away when I was 12.
Oh, okay.
So he's, my mother was the only one still alive when I left. And my mother, obviously I was the last kid leaving the nest, so it was more difficult on her than I realized, than I ever imagined. I actually caught her crying once. Actually, the day before I went, I caught her crying. I'm like, "What are you crying for, Mom?" "Oh, I'm okay." Of course, I'm okay. And I know she's like, it's like, "Hey, you got to kick your big birds out of the nest. I'm the
Yeah.
last one. You got to kick me out." And she's crying more. So it was kind of sad, but it was happy too. Like I said, I was very grateful, and she did fine. While I was in the Army, she was very proud of it and so forth. And she would come visit too, like when I was stationed in Germany and stuff like that. She'd come visit Germany.
Oh, yeah.
So we had a great time. Neuschwanstein, I don't know if you know the big castle, the big famous castle in Germany. We went to see it, and I tried to convince my mom, "All right, Mom, let's walk up the hill here." We're walking up the hill. And there's actually a tape of it somewhere. I wish I could get a hold of it. I've since been divorced and remarried, so I don't know what happened to that tape, but there's a tape of this, and it's hilarious because in the tape, my mom's like, and she's like, "Where's this damn castle?" And I'm like, "Look up, Mom," and you look up, and there it is.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh!" Yeah. So it was quite a story. That was quite fun. But yeah, the first day, like I said, when I left, it was emotional. But I was I was very happy to be in the Army, and it was exciting, for an 18-year-old kid to, be heading out and going.
Well, do you recall any of your instructors from basic training?
Yeah. The drill sergeant I had was Barry Bonds. Is it Barry? Is it not Barry? Maybe it was something Bonds. Well, I didn't call him by his first name, obviously.
Yeah.
So, but his last name was definitely Bonds. It was Sergeant First Class Bonds, and and the other one was Staff Sergeant Slider. And both of them were really good. Bonds was really good. He just come back from Korea or something like that. I didn't know that much about the Army at the time to know that much about him, but yeah, they were pretty good guys.
Okay.
I was in Bravo 12, which is Bravo Company 12th MP Battalion. And they changed down the road. They changed their battalion numbers later. It got us all confused, so I don't know what it is now.
Yeah, I know all the MP OSITs are now at Leonardwood. I'm pretty
Leonardwood,
sure.
yes, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. And apparently now Fort McClellan is. They say it was a hot spot for chemicals now. So
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's groups out there now that, you know, are tracking chemical activities and people that have been to Fort McClellan, if they're sick or not.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Okay, so how did you adjust then? I mean, I know you said you came from kind of a military family, but how did you adjust to that lifestyle when you got to basic training? Was that difficult for you at all, or?
I don't think it was that difficult. I mean, to me it was really exciting that, you know, here I was in a different state now already, and was going to do that. I had left my high school sweetheart in Greenville, so of course, you know, I was you know, missing that and missing all that, and there was a lot of drama there because I was away from home. But besides that, I loved it. I mean, I loved being out there. In basic training, I was, you know, tall and I didn't weigh very much back then, like 126 pounds, and so push-ups weren't the easiest for me. So I think in basic training that was probably the only challenge I had was push-ups, getting through that. I think I had to do 40 to graduate, and I think the first time I missed it. I missed that vein or something like that, so I didn't get to graduate or whatever when everybody else did. There was probably like 3 or 4 of us that didn't, but then the next time I made it and, you know, went right through. But that was it as far as the challenges in basic. I remember, you know, going through MP Basic, and after that school was done, being done in I think it was the 5th of December, the 5th of December '84. I remember being done and graduating, thinking, you know, my life's before me, you know, that I'm going to be on this fantastic journey, and I did go on a fantastic journey. You know, I saw some ugly things too, but, you know, for the most part, you know, glad that I'm in this skin, my skin, you know.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, after you get out of your basic training, out to your OSIT, where do you go from there?
I was able to, they let us take a little leave, so I went back to Greenville, saw the mom and the girlfriend and all that, and then I reported down to Fort Knox, Kentucky. I got my, like I said, I got the choice of duty station, so this is, you know, people, you know, regrets are regrets, but there's one thing I wouldn't have done is probably went to Fort Knox, because Fort Knox was so close to home, so I went back and forth, when actually it was good time to get off the tee, you know?
Yeah.
It was time to move on. I realized that later, after I was traveling, like, oh man, I should have, you know, I should have been in Germany when I was 18, you know?
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? I should have been in Germany at 18, not friggin' you know, Fort Knox. But Fort Knox was wonderful. It gave me the start, it gave me the foundation in my life to do what I'm doing now, what I love now. I did well. I went to the 194th MP Brigade, or the 194th MP Platoon. They were in the 194th Armored Brigade. And at the time, the 194th was the only separate armored brigade, meaning it was the only armored brigade that could self-sustain. It was like a mini division or mini whatever. So it was a small, compact armored brigade, and they had an MP platoon, and I was in that. And I always joke that, well, the Army got over on me because I thought, oh, my first duty station is going to be Fort Knox, so I get to drive around in an MP car and, you know, my little cute hat and stuff. Because that's what I wanted to do at 18. You know, when I drive around in my car, you know, they got me though. They stuck me in a strafe unit in a, you know, oh yes, you get Fort Knox, Kentucky, but you're in the 194th Armored Brigade, which, you know, which, you know, deployed and did all this hotshot stuff. So while I'm in the brigade, the first thing I get there, we deploy to NTC. You know, it's just a training thing. Right. But I'm a boot private, and here I am going on a deployment. You know, my first deployment as a boot private to NTC. Something happened there where we lit up. You know, we did really well. And we lit up a helicopter trying to land and blow us all up or something like that. So I got an AAM. So here I am 6 months in the Army. And I have an Army Achievement Medal already. So that was something. Like I said, and I wouldn't have got that had I went and, you know, drove my little car around and stuff like that. And another thing I wouldn't have gotten, probably, is I got selected to be an MP investigator.
Okay.
While I was at Fort Knox, my platoon sergeant there, 194th, recommended me to go to MPI. And MPI, you know, that was my job. That's what I did, man. You know, I was plain clothes you know, for 6 years out of the Army, I wore plain clothes. I didn't even wear the uniform. You know, but I was so good. I was such a hot dog at that job. You know, the colonel loved me. The colonel of the MP activity loved me because, you know, I could crack cases and I could get people to confess. And I was really good at getting people to interviewing people. I've interviewed almost 1,600 people, or over 1,600 people, you know, through the military, whether it's, you know, a criminal case or whatever the case may be, you know, command investigations and stuff like that. I was really good at it. I was very successful at it.
Were you trying to find criminals that were committing crimes like on military installations? Was that?
Right, right. What it was is, I'm sure you've heard of CID.
Yeah.
And many times I was recruited by the CID, but I just didn't do it. I don't know. It just didn't feel right to me, and it turned out right. Anything CID didn't want to investigate, we got.
Oh.
You know, so in other words, CID would murders, rapes.
Right.
You know, they were supposed to. CID was supposed to investigate everything over $1,000 in value.
Yeah, yeah.
But they didn't.
Yeah.
You know, there'd always be a reason why they couldn't do the thing. And you know, CID was a great organization, and they did great stuff. But to me, I don't know. I got a lot of their stuff, so it kind of made me a little resentful. Probably like, my God, don't they do anything over there? You know? And I'm sure they probably were busy too.
Right.
And there was always, you know, but I was really good at clearing cases and so forth. So, you know, my specialty was domestic disturbances, you know, because unfortunately in the Army that's what there was a lot, you know, a lot of domestic problems and so forth, trying to sort that stuff out.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was really good at that, did a lot of interviews. And then, you know, everybody was telling me, because even when I went to Germany the first time, well, I went to Korea in between, but even when I went to Germany the first time, I ended up in MPI. And I was doing, you know, I was really good at it, you know, I was good at, you know, investigations. But, you know, I was told, you better get out of this or you'll never, you know, you'll never make rank. If you get on it, if you stay in MPI, you'll never make rank. And so I did. I got into the more straff positions that I was supposed to, and we moved up that way too. So.
Okay. So you go from Knox to
Korea.
Korea.
Well, again, we were in Korea, and I'm married by now. I married my high school sweetheart, and we're at Fort Knox, comfortable. The wife and I've had a child by then. We're all comfortable at Fort Knox. So my plan is, well, let me do a short tour at Korea, and then come back to Fort Knox, and you know, we can stay at Fort Knox longer. And it worked. We had bought a house in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. So that worked. So I got myself on a trip to Korea, a short tour in Korea. I went to Camp Page, Korea.
Okay.
That was just as far north as Tongdashan, which is where the 2nd Infantry Division is, closest to the DMZ. So I was up there close to the DMZ. We were just in a helicopter base on the, what do I want to say, the eastern side. It was Camp Page. It was Chuncheon, Korea.
Okay.
And I was a desk sergeant there. Spent years as a desk sergeant there. Nothing really amazing happened there. It was, you know, an interesting historical value to me because I got to check out a lot of the stuff about the Korean War, and I later took a class on it, and that's a very interesting time in American history, the Korean War. But also, yeah, we were on again. I mentioned we were on a helicopter base, but one of the other units was called WDSK, or I can't remember what it was, but I know what it was. It was nukes. It was a nuclear capability. That's what that base was all about at that time. And it probably even doesn't exist now. But there wasn't anything eventful there in Korea as far as military or anything like that. Came back, went to Fort Knox, went back to MPI. You know, did MPI there at Fort Knox.
What rank were you during this time?
I was a sergeant. I made sergeant in 2.5 years. I made it very quickly, 2.5 years. It took me forever to make staff sergeant.
Was that partially because you were doing the
MPI, and some people would say that was, but you know, you had to have college credits and stuff like that, and it seemed like I just didn't have the points, but it seemed like they weren't promoting a lot at the time either.
Yeah.
It seemed like they've gotten a lot better at promoting. But yeah, it took me forever to make staff sergeant. So I made buck sergeant very quick, 2.5 years. But I was a buck sergeant for some time. I don't think I made staff sergeant until, I think like 8.5 or 9. It was a long time. It was a long time. I know I was, damn, you know, upset.
Yeah. Okay, so you come back to Fort Knox, and then what?
Do MPI. Then I'm at Fort Knox, and I admit that the commanders and stuff like that liked me because, like I said, I was a hot dog investigator. You know, all the way up to the point where we had another MP that was charged with defrauding the government, and they had him in the detention facility at Fort Knox.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm all part of this command. The detention facility MPs and stuff, they were all together. They were all served, and one colonel was in charge of it. And this guy escaped. His name was Doyle McMahon. He escaped. He was an MP that was defrauding the company, and he was at the hospital. And he asked the guy, "Oh, I got to use the bathroom." And when he used the bathroom, he went out the other door or something like that. So the guy, you know, obviously detention facility, he got a black eye. But of course, they put their best guy on the case. And they actually like flew me down to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. That's where this Doyle was from. Flew me down there to go try to find him and capture him and stuff like that. With one of the, we had civilian police that detained AWOLs or something like that. I took one of those guys with me, and we were down there for a couple of days. Never found him down there. We got a few steps behind him. In other words, we got to a bank where he was just at. So we were hot on his trail for a while, but then he went up to Illinois and somehow tried to check himself into high school there to get a new name and stuff like that. It's something he said. I don't know. The coaches were like, I don't know who this guy is. Next thing you know, the cops are following him. It's the car that was stolen that, you know, that we had put in the NCIC and stuff like that. And so they caught him. So we went to Illinois and got him from the cops there. But that's just an interesting story that you know, that I remember in my life. You know, it was just real fancy. It was on the trail of a guy, and he wasn't a dangerous guy, but he was another MP. Is the interesting part. Yeah. And then Fort Knox, 91 obviously was Desert Shield. They were looking for active duty fillers, and of course, you know, I raised my hand and said, "Hey, let me go." You know, so I went over there with some other MPs that in the activity volunteers. Got over there Desert Shield, for Desert Shield. They signed us to the 401st EPW camp, Enclosure B. So I was a compound sergeant for that. There are eight enclosures in there. Wait a second, I'm sorry, 3 enclosures, 8 compounds per enclosure. And I was a compound sergeant. And that was interesting duty, of course. You know, Desert Storm didn't take very long. Had a lot of prisoners there. The prisoners, the most I can say about the Iraqi prisoners at that time was interesting, and to me it was interesting later for you know, for Iraqi freedom, because things had changed so dramatically. When and you know, you hear a lot of things, Cheney and stuff like that, and a lot of the Republicans take abuse, well, maybe rightfully still, about they were going to treat us as liberators. Desert Steel, and this is my historical perspective. I've told you I've got a history degree. We can talk about that later. I'm proud of that. My historical perspective is this: that is why Cheney and all them thought we were going to be treated as liberators. Is Desert Shield, Desert Storm, the way things went down there? Because at the compounds, you know, they would riot at the compounds. We would make a joke. But the first ones we got off, the first ones we'd get off the thing, they thought we were going to kill them. You know, they were blindfolded or something like that, because, you know, it's the right way to bring them to the camp. They thought we were going to kill them. I mean, they thought we were going to make them kneel down and shoot them. I mean, the ones that could speak English, please don't shoot me. It's like, dude, we don't do that, man.
Yeah.
You know, we don't do that. Move on. You know, we kind of harassed them and stuff like that, and we kind of got a camaraderie with them. Like, stop it. You know, you're being an idiot. You know. Yeah. But you know, first, please don't kill me, and then they were hungry. Oh, please feed me. We're hungry. You know, every time they wanted something, they would riot. They would, oh, we want food. Here, give me food. And our MREs had pork in them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they would have a fit about that. Oh, we can't eat this. And they'd throw it back and like, look, here's the deal. And this is how we worked it out. Seriously, we said, all right, here's the deal. There's 12 MREs in each box, right? And there's how many of you? There's only 9 of you. Here, You got 3 extras that take care of the port, and you guess what? You know, there was never any MREs hanging out to where they. But so in other words, we gave them a percentage over. We would just give them the MREs and percentage over to cover the port, and they love that. They love that kind of wheeling and dealing and how to get things. But then they get food, and then they want cigarettes. You know, oh, and we want cigarettes. You know, a variety for cigarettes, and then they want soccer balls. You know, it's like it was like Maslow's hierarchies of needs.
Yeah.
You know, in full play, dude, in full play, because you know, first they got this. Oh, then we want this. Then we want this. You know, now we want VC. Because I tease them. I'm like, oh, next thing you want is VCR TV, huh? You know, so it was kind of interesting. I mean, that was an interesting part of my life, because there was a guy, Latif, I've got his name written down somewhere. I think he was Saddam Hussein's, I might be wrong about this, I'm not sure. He was an important government official, like Department of Energy or something like that. His name was Latif. He was a smart guy. He was a professor at one of their universities. And he ended up in our camp because when Bush said, fight them, get rid of Saddam, he was one of the people that rose up. You know, there was a lot of artists and stuff like that rose up against Saddam.
Right.
And then they needed to be protected because clearly we weren't going to go in there and, you know, wipe them out at this time. So we had these civilians that said they claimed they were civilian. They had to go through tribunals to prove they were civilians and prove who they were. And I know Latif ended up in the United States because I was at protective service class, you know, bodyguarding school down at Fort McClellan, Alabama. Latif called my mother, and my mom said, hey, this guy says he knows you over there. So a prisoner of war actually contacted my mother, you know, and said, hey, I came to Ohio, or I came to, they gave me asylum in the United States, and I told them I wanted to be next to my friend, Michael Maloney. It's like, oh my God, dude, you know. Yeah. He was a nice guy. He was an elderly gentleman, and he actually helped me run that camp, because we would find the guys that could speak English, and we would treat them just like the military. You know, we'd say, hey, you're in charge of these guys here. You know, take care of them. And that worked really well, because at first.
Okay, hold on, I need to pause this. Okay, we are returning back from a short break with the interview of Michael Maloney. So you were talking about Desert Storm.
Yeah, and I was talking about Latif, and that we smartened up. We learned quickly that the compounds were overcrowded. Again, they were suited for 450, and they were suited for 450, and we ended up with about 900 each. We figured out quickly to get them organized militarily, because most of them were like in military units, so they understood, you know. So we got most of the ones that could speak in English, or at least had a command of the English language, and made most of them leaders as best as possible. Some of them had to be removed because they were stinkers or whatever. But that worked well. It was harder, and this is how I met Latif, and we actually corresponded a lot more. Because he was, I had a civilian compound after I got rid of my 900. We got them out of there and they moved on. I'm pretty sure the Saudis took control of them after they left us, because a lot of times we'd ask them, where did all these people go? You know, I guess they were repatriated through the Saudis and so forth. But that's how I knew Latif. And then came back to Fort Knox after Desert Storm, Desert Shield was done. Come back to Fort Knox. It was only 4.5. I was only there for 4.5 months, which is actually a pretty small deployment comparatively. I did after all the prisoners were gone. We thought we were going to go home early. Well, the active duty fillers, they pulled them out of the units and they put them back into another unit. We stayed longer. It's like, oh, great. So we did stay a little longer than normal than the other, but it was okay. We helped clear customs and stuff like that, and I got to go on the boat. Norman Schwarzkopf, General Schwarzkopf had a boat off of Bahrain for R&R, and it was an awesome R&R thing. Everything was free, you know, booze and pizza and all that stuff. You got to go there for 4 days R&R. That was nice, and if I didn't stay longer, I wouldn't have got that. But anyways, came back to Fort Knox, back in the MPI, and then we went to Germany. Then we went to Germany from Fort Knox. No.
The whole family did?
Yes, we went to Germany from Fort Knox.
Okay. And the family came with you?
Right, we went to Hohenfels, Germany, which in Germany, that's the major training, that's where all the tanks maneuver and stuff like that, and they have live ranges and stuff like that, and Grafenbeer and so forth. We spent 4 years there, loved it in Germany. I didn't do any deployments from Germany, except maybe some protective service missions through and beyond. Then I went to Fort Hood. That's when all the when I went to Fort Hood. Is that right? Where did we? Hang on, I need to. Yeah, that's right. Fort Hood is where all the fun started. We went to Fort Hood and was stationed in Fort Hood. The 401st MP company. I always, thought 401 had some significance in my life because I was in the 401st EPW camp, and then I was in the 401st MP company. And there was another unit down the road that was somewhere it was 401 something, but 401 kept popping up in the military on me. But at Fort Hood, I was a squad leader and then became a platoon sergeant, E6, and then I made E7, sergeant first class. I was platoon sergeant. I loved that. I think out of every assignment in the military, being a platoon sergeant was my favorite. Just because I love being responsible and taking care of 40 people and mentoring them and teaching them and passing along what other soldiers passed along to me. Went to Bosnia while I was a platoon sergeant, a Black Sheep platoon. So in other words, with Black Sheep platoon, 4th platoon, we went to Tuzla base. We did various missions, stuff outside the wire, and part of the platoon was responsible for guarding the Tactical Operations Center at Eagle Base. So in other words, the two-star general that was stationed there, his headquarters we were responsible for. And then we had 2 to 3 other squads that were going out and doing other stuff. Then we went, let's see, then I came back to Fort Hood after that deployment, and then back to Germany. We love Germany. Me and my family love Germany. I actually now, again, we're talking about regrets. I wish I would have stayed in Germany the last time. I maybe found employment over there, because Germany is just, it was just a great country to live in, I thought. It was beautiful, clean, and they valued history and all that good stuff. There's so much art history over there too. I was studying at the time. I was studying at the University of Maryland in Germany. I actually completed my degree the second time I was in Germany. Completed my history degree. It was University of Maryland there. And went to Bosnia again. This time was probably the best. I said I had the most fun, and it was the best assignment I had was being a platoon sergeant. But the actual best as far as logistics and stuff like that was my next assignment when I went to Bosnia and Sarajevo. I was the team chief for a 3-star general, General Dotson. He was the commander of SFOR, the stabilization force in Bosnia, and I was his team chief for security force. There was a team of about 12 to 14 of us that protected him, and the drivers and all that stuff, cars and all that stuff. That was a lot of fun because you got to fly everywhere. He had 2 helicopters. He had one he flew on and a backup one. So I made some great friendships there with the pilots and so forth like that. Had some good times there, and there was some edgy moments there, but for the most part, as for that duty was not. It was nothing.
Was this during a conflict?
It was the stabilization force was created during the Dayton Peace Accords. I don't know if you're familiar with those. The Dayton Peace Accords laid out that everybody's going to do this, and we'll be the enforcers of that. So the stabilization force went over there to enforce that. By the time General Dotson was in charge of the stabilization force, it had been downgraded from a 4-star. It used to be a 4-star post to a 3-star, and he was a 3-star. So the threat and all that stuff and things were calming down by then. Kosovo, I guess at that time, was probably the most, burning or most problem area at that time. And that was a different command, I believe, K4. well, so that was imminent danger. I mean, obviously that was considered a combat tour or combat time or whatever. Even though there wasn't, I mean, it wasn't to the extent of, you know, Operation Iraqi Freedom.
So you did that time. Then where did you go after that? Did you go back to Germany?
Went back to Germany, and I had 1 year left to do 20, because I thought, I really was appreciative of the time I spent in the Army, but you know, after 20 years, the fact of the matter is you're working for half pay, because you know, I signed up, and they agreed to pay me half after 20 years. Well, if you work 21 years, you're already getting that half. You're working for the other half. You know what I'm saying?
You only got half pay?
Well, you get your retirement pay is half of what your salary was.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah. Gotcha.
So if you stay in, you already got that half. You're working for the other half.
Right.
So I didn't think that was, you know, and plus, you know, it was time. It was time.
What year was this?
This is 2004. Well, actually, it was 2003 that I was trying to decide what to do. 2002, 2003, deciding whether I'm going to re-up or not or stay in.
Did you go to Iraq or Afghanistan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Could you go over that a little bit?
Yeah, just a second. I'm working on it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
This is the story. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 2003, and I'm in Germany, and I'm trying to decide what to do, and pretty much the decision is to get out. You know, so I got 1 year left. So I put in my retirement packet. I'm in Germany, putting in my retirement packet, and I get orders for Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Last year in the Army. So I said, all right, we know we're getting out, and we know we're going to resettle in Greenville. So Fort Campbell, I decide, I tell the wife and kids, why don't you guys go to Greenville, and I'll do my last year in Kentucky, like a geographical bachelor, and then I'll get out, we'll be done. Get to Fort Knox, Kentucky. Hey, your retirement's approved, but you know what, you did such a good job for us, we're sending you to Iraq. So last year, I was with the 101st Airborne Division in Iraq, and they assigned me to the 716th MP Battalion. I was an HHD. I was the operations sergeant for the HHD command. So in other words, HHD was a headquarters company that took care of the people that ran the headquarters. So then basically I was in battalion headquarters. It wasn't, you know, a lot of people ask, well, what did you do in Iraq? Well, I was actually what people make fun of, I guess, in battalion, you know, safe battalion. I was behind the wire, Babylon, Iraq, which I thought was very interesting. Something about my life in the military has religious overtones. And I don't want to get into anything crazy religious with anybody, but something about my life is religious, because the military has required me to end up in these historic religious positions. I was at Babylon, at Medjugorje, when I was in Syria. I don't know if you've ever heard of Medjugorje. Some of these are very religious places, and somehow I always end up there, you know, by accident. Not like, oh, I really want to go there, you know, just boom, you're here. So Babylon was one of them. That's where HHD, where the battalion was stationed in Babylon. And I went outside the wire 3 times. And going outside the wire at that time was very dangerous. Agreeable, our sergeant major's van, or his, what I want to say, his
Humvee, or
his Humvee, what I want to say, his whole convoy.
Oh, convoy.
His
okay.
convoy got hit, and a good friend of mine got nailed. He was Corporal Hogue. He was corporal at the time. I think he's been promoted since. He was the team leader of the security of the sergeant major. He got hit, and his hand pretty much blown off. That was probably the toughest time for me. Well, maybe the second time, because there's another story I want to share. Is Hogue's equipment had to be turned back in and stuff like that, because he'd been evac and stuff, and it was just a horrible situation. His stuff came back and had to be washed and stuff. You know, so we had to wash the blood out and stuff like that. It was just, I don't know. It seemed to me at the time, it was like, man, you know what? There should be a different way to handle this stuff.
Yeah.
This
gotta be somebody else.
This isn't really cool, you know.
Yeah.
I wasn't thrilled with that. I just wasn't thrilled with that. And now the last thing I want to tell, the last story I want to tell is about Joseph Bellavia. he was an awesome MP. He was probably what we would consider the MP of the year. I got him as a boot private when I was in Germany. When I was in Germany, for Hohenfels, when I was MPI, then I moved into the combat MP unit because everyone was telling me to get out so I could get promoted. Bellavia was one of the first privates that came to me from right out of basic training, and I tried to mentor him and worked on him, and we did get him to the Soldier of the Month boards and Soldier of the Quarters, and he was winning them all. He was smoking them all. He was a good soldier. He was the kind. You've been to a board, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He was the kind where the sergeant major would say, demonstrate the command, parade rest or something. He would stand up at the board, stand at attention, and give the command. No one did that at boards.
Yeah.
It was just it's the kind of stuff you can't teach. He would do that, and he was just awesome. So I had him a brief time for maybe a year when he was a private, and I left Germany, and I don't think I ever heard from him again until 716th MP Battalion. It was October 16th. October 16th, our sergeant major, the battalion sergeant major, came running into our tent. All right, everybody get up. We've got KIAs. And this is the 16th of October. Our battalion commander was killed on that day with Bellavia and another guy, Corporal Greeley. And I mean, that was a very sad day for the battalion, a very sad day. And I didn't even know Bellavia was in the battalion at the time. Until I saw these names. I was like, oh Jesus, this is so that was really, really, really tough.
What year was this?
This is October 16th, 2003.
Okay.
2003. So and it's Colonel, it's Lieutenant Colonel, I forgot his first name, Orlando. What's his first name? It's an interesting first name, Kim Orlando. So Lieutenant Colonel Kim Orlando. I mean, it's already in the history books as far as military history. I mean, and Joseph Bellavia, his the MP of the Year award that they give at Fort Leonard Wood is called the Joseph Bellavia Award.
Oh, they named it.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, they named the award after him.
Wow.
So that is just cool.
Yeah, especially to have known him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He was a great guy. Very good. They all were, It's tough to talk about these things sometimes because they are all, something special. And what I think is most special about veterans is they will not tell you how tough their life was because they've seen everybody else had it tough too.
Yeah.
That's why they won't talk and say some of this stuff because they don't say, because you said that. Remember you were at the meeting, you said a lot of them say, oh, I didn't do anything special. When the fact of the matter is a lot of them did.
Yeah.
And they just won't say because these other incidents. And I'll tell you the other thing you said that was very important at that meeting is that the real stories, well, not the real stories, but the more of the story is what else they did in their life. That's very key because especially with the VFWs and the Legions that need help now, need support now, is these World War II veterans, they spent 4 years away from their families and home fighting and stuff like that. They came back and survived, and they built these organizations. That is, that's amazing. These people are amazing, and then they came back and built these organizations. Our organization is going to be 70 years old,
Wow.
So 70 years ago, they came back and built this thing, and these organizations are still educating and teaching and so on.
Yeah. Wow.
So what's left?
So, I mean, I know you kind of talked about it's a hard subject to talk about, but what is that like, witnessing, you got guys coming in that are hurt, casualties, KIAs, what is that like to go through?
It's tough, but at the time it's happening, it's tough, but at the time it's happening, it doesn't, I guess you feel more about it when you're looking back at it than when it's actually occurring. Because some of the stuff, honestly, some of the stuff, and if you know me at all, comedy is my, my fail-safe. I'll always use comedy and try to be funny and stuff like that.
Sure.
There was, here's a good example. I told you I only been outside the wire 3 times, so I wasn't really in a lot of danger in Iraqi freedom. But there was one time we were taking artillery fire of some type
Sure.
in the compound, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, take cover! Everybody take cover!" And we had this medic who she. I don't know how to say this except that she was a little bit more portly than she's supposed to be. She had a little weight to her, and at PT she was always the slowest, and she was always hard to get her moving. Okay, but when the shells came in, she first wanted to bunker, man, just like the road runner, and stuff like that. I guess that's how you cope. You laugh with it about. But when you're looking at Hoag's bloody uniform and stuff like that, and at the time we don't really know how he's doing. We don't really got that is difficult. It's difficult. And like I said at the time, it's more like, man, should we just throw this away and write it off?
Right.
Instead of having to turn this shit in. It's kind of like that kind of stuff. Like, really, we got to do this? Maybe that kind of disbelief,
Okay.
denial and coping with it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what was coming home like?
Coming home was awesome. It was awesome. The Fort Campbell was very good, and that unit was very good at doing the whole hero's welcome. I will tell you at that time I did think and growing up in the VFW, this is more on my life beyond that. I don't know how much time we have left,
Okay.
but I actually have been a member of the VFW since I was 10 years old. I started at the Sons VFW, and then of course I served and became a commander and all-American commander, all that good stuff. But since I was 10 years old, so when I saw that homecoming, and I remember being at the homecoming at Fort Campbell and everybody like cheering and there being bands playing and stuff like that. I remember thinking of our Vietnam vets that didn't have that kind of stuff. Thinking that's kind of cool because my dad was pretty sour about that, and you could hear the sourness at the VFW growing up about the whole Vietnam, fiasco. Not who cares about the political things of it? The fiasco that we didn't take care of the veterans when they came back.
Yeah. Okay. So you had a nice, parade or?
Oh yeah, they had this big. They had this big auditorium, and my wife and kids were there, and it was good. And they were all there.
Okay, so I know that you're involved in the VFW now.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that? What's your involvement with VFW?
Well, I got out of the. And this is a funny story. I got all kinds of funny stories. I got out of the Army directly, went back to Greenville. And of course, just back from Iraq and freedom, so there was some popularity there. Don Dietrich, my father-in-law now, because I told you I've been divorced and I'm on my second marriage now. Don Dietrich is on the dance floor, and I'm like, Don, I'd love to help VFW. Obviously we've been a member 10 years. What do you need help with? He's like, be quartermaster for me. It's not a hard job, it's easy. I was like, you sure? I'm going to start out with something small. Yeah, be quartermaster, It's easy. It wasn't easy. Financing the books and all that stuff, it's the finance officer for the VFW. So he snookered me into that, and while I was quartermaster, he was commander, and we made him an All-American. And that was nice, because that was the first time the VFW in Greenville had ever been honored with All-American. So later I would get it also. I'm also a member of the American Legion 707 there in Inglewood, because I live in Inglewood now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I live in Inglewood, and my passion's in Greenville with this park, with this idea we're doing. We're working on making this digital library. The park was originally created by Jack Harless, Dr. Jack Harless, a former Greenville mayor. He developed a committee because they were bringing the traveling wall to Greenville. He developed a committee to set up the park, grass it and put all that good stuff out. There's a gazebo in there now. There's other monuments in there now. But he started all that. And at this thing we're doing, we're going to honor him for, starting the park and so forth.
Okay.
And then we're going to continue to charge, to get our digital library up and our digital memorial up.
Okay. So what kind of, what's your feelings towards the military and war in general? after have served, you know, you went to Desert Storm, Iraq. So you went to Iraq twice then, right?
No, I went to Iraq once.
Okay.
I went to, well, I was in Saudi Arabia, and I was in Iraq, and then Bosnia. Those are three combat places.
So what's your feelings towards, I guess, the military and the war in general then?
Well, you know what, and again, I've studied history, and I've looked at the history of all this, and I've actually, and I feel, again, I feel very fortunate that I was a part of this history, you know. But again, I go back to, you know, the Cheney thing. Cheney would always say, I think we don't learn enough from our history. I think we got to know where we came from before we know who we are, and before we can know where we're going. And I think we fail with that, and that's why there's this huge push, at least for me and the committee we're working on, to get this stuff digitally, because it's going to get even worse now. Millennials and so forth like that, it's only on phones and electronics. That's why we have to get this histories and so forth on the electronics. And you know, and revive that stuff, tell these stories. I think what you guys are doing and what we're doing, completely important, completely relevant. The military though now, I think they've learned that the old days of troops, a lot of troops, isn't going to be necessary, because electronics and drones and all this stuff is eventually going to take its place. And I think we should, you know, in financial concerns, we owe a lot of debt, you know, to be run around trying to police this and police that. And you know, I have a perspective on, you know, the rise of Islam and so forth. I've got a background in history on that also, and I know that they have to have the Reformation. You know, I guess the white Christian world, or whatever you want to call us, we had a Reformation. You know,
Right.
Centuries ago we had a Reformation. We separated church and state. The Muslim and Islam world are going to have to do that. They're going to have to separate
Yeah.
it. They can't coexist. Not in this day and age. It's just not going to be able to. They're going to have to decide whether they want to live in the century, or you know, there will be war. You know, I think even Barack Obama says that. You know, we've only got so many choices here, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because I've seen the real victims of what's going on over there in the Middle East. I've seen them. I know them from the first war, when I got to talk to them and interact with them. They're just like us. You know, they're just like us, but they're trapped by an ideology that they don't have any choice whether they're in. You know, and it's a sad situation. The women over there, it's a sad situation.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very sad situation. It's slavery, is what it is. You know, Americans don't want to admit it. It's slavery. You know. There's 14-year-old girls over there being sold to 30-year-old men. That's slavery, you know? It's slavery. We talk about, you know, slavery in old days and stuff like that. What about slavery occurring right now? You know, it's occurring right now.
Yeah.
I could ramble about this forever. It's my passion, you know? You know, it doesn't seem right to me, but I do know. And I will share some stuff with you. You said I could submit some other stuff. I would like, if you don't mind, I'd like to submit some pictures and paintings. They're on my Facebook page with this digital library.
Absolutely.
Paintings of the Iraqis drew for me at the cow pound.
No, definitely.
You'll have to check it out. One of them is a guy reaching for a rose, and it's so far away he can't reach it, and he's cut. The body's cut. It's very powerful stuff. I'll share it with you. I'll send it to you. Yeah, I've got trinkets and stuff that this is part of the idea of the digital library too. Trinkets and stuff that we can photograph and stuff and put up there.
Definitely need to be on there.
But everybody, and lots of people have this stuff to share.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Well, thanks for doing the interview, and thanks for your service.
Everyone, Mike Maloney, Greenville Veterans Memorial Park and Digital Library. Again, we still are taking orders for T-shirts. We won't be taking them much longer, so make sure you get your order in, small to 2XL. And we also have show DVDs from our show, our talent show in Halloween. You can order those, $15 donation also. And again, we hand deliver those by veterans. It's for our park and digital library. And we can also ship them to you, give you free shipping if you order at least 2 items. Here's the graphic here, shows you what we have there. And we can also, you can either contact us there at the email, Twitter, our YouTube, or our Facebook page. Let us know what you want and we'll take care of you. We appreciate your support. Anything is appreciated. Thanks. Have a great day.